Hey, I'm Zachary. I've been trading options for around 5 to 6 years now. I originally started using Tastyworks in 2018. The point of this video is to help you get the information you need to decide if Tastyworks is the right brokerage account for you or not. In my opinion, Tastyworks is the best brokerage account for options traders and derivatives traders until they have at least 100,000 US dollars. But in my opinion, it's not really the best platform for dividend investors or long-term investors, as while it doesn't really have any downsides compared to other platforms. Most of the features as well as how the interface of Tastyworks is designed is really meant for options traders and derivatives traders, so you don't really have a real benefit to Tastyworks versus another platform if you're a long-term buy and hold investor. So just in case any of y'all don't know what Tastyworks is, it's just a brokerage account like TdAmeritrade or Robinhood or Charles Schwab, where you can buy and sell stocks, options, derivatives, commodities, gold. And Tastyworks also offers the ability to buy and sell cryptocurrencies in the account, which is a little bit of a unique feature. But really, Tastyworks is just another brokerage account that is specifically tailored for options traders and derivatives traders and has a good interface if you engage in that sort of activities. So what are some features that make Tastyworks stand out as a good brokerage to choose for some people? The first main feature of Tastyworks that makes it stand out above all other brokers is their options trading interface. So let me show you. Okay, jumping into the platform to show you why Tastyworks is better in terms of a options trading interface. Say you want to trade the S&P 500 options. You're going to go up to this box and click SPY. This will take you to the S&P 500. Click the trade tab, and then you'll see all the different options expiry dates on the screen. You select whichever one you want. So I want over 45 days to expiration. Go to the October cycle. Okay. And this is the thing that makes Tastyworks a very good platform for trading options. You can see this orange ball on the screen. It shows you the expected move of the option or of the underlining during the expiration. So for the S&P 500, it's expected to move from 395 anywhere from, let's see, over to 368 or all the way up to 422 or so. This is the expected move of the option. So it makes it very easy to see where an underlining is likely to go within the time frame, given the implied volatility. The other thing that's particularly good is with Tastyworks, they don't just have this table view like most brokerages do. Let me show you. So like, let's say you're gonna do, well, first when you try to make a trade, it automatically shows you the delta down here. It shows you the probability of being at 50% profit, extrinsic value, everything you would need to know with an options trade. And it makes it very easy to adjust the price of the option. And it shows your buying power and everything like that. That's very good and much better than other platforms, but as well, it'll show, they have like a different way to view your trades. So if you go to the curve analysis mode up here, it'll show this. This isn't I don't really like this, how this is, but if you do analyze, you can you see this screen where it'll show you this screen where you can see a more visual representation of the options trade you're considering placing. So you can see exactly down and look, if I sold this option, I'd have a break even of 362.50 or so. And yeah, it just makes it easy to visualize the expected moves on a screen, like here, 1 standard deviation expected move, 2 standard deviation expected move. It just makes it all easier. Another thing that's really unique about this curve analysis interface is that you can see, which no other platform has as far as I'm aware, where it's so visually clear, but it allows you to see the profit and loss at different theoretical time frames. So for example, when you're looking here, if the price of the S&P 500 went all the way down to this strike today, on September 1st, 2022, the option's theoretical value would be minus $789.52. It went all the way down to $370 today. But if you want to see, what's it going to be at in 2 weeks? We can go over here, go to the analysis area, and then just click on the chart. Okay, 2 weeks away, the 15th. Click that in, and then you can see, okay, the profit and loss theoretically would be, if it went to $370, the S&P 500, it would go to only being a $570.30 loss. But let's see, okay, what about close to expiration, 2 weeks later? Okay, it would be around a $305.43 loss. So this just allows you to visualize and check and make sure you do want to get in an options trade, or if it would be better off to wait a little while longer if you do think the underlining might go lower. One of the other good benefits of TastyWorks, which, you don't actually have to use their brokerage to learn from it, is their company of TastyTrade. They do a lot of free educational content related to options trading. They do studies. They just generally discuss how the market is doing. We have a lot of good information, as well as a lot of tutorials on how to manage your portfolio and design it to be profitable in the long term. My personal favorite educational resource that they have to offer is the Top Dog series. It's more or less the foundation for how and why I designed my portfolio the way I did. You can check out my portfolio here. And it gives a lot of good information for if you're managing a larger account. Be warned though, a lot of the trades and techniques you'll see on TastyTrade are only they're situationally dependent, and they combine those trades with other things they're doing in their portfolio already. So they might be hedging another strategy, or they might be simply they have extra risk they're willing to take and trying to take on that your portfolio might not be able to at that certain moment. So don't follow TastyTrade as a be-all, end-all resource, but they're a good place to get ideas and learn the basics of options trading and how options strategies work. But they're not really you shouldn't follow TastyTrade every day and do all the trades they do on this show. They're more of examples and teaching pieces. They're not actually intended to be followed. And keep in mind, TastyTrade is not trying to teach the emotional side of trading and all of the elements you'll need to be a successful trader in the long term. They're really only teaching the technical side of it and the fundamentals on how these strategies work. So keep in mind, you're going to still need to learn proper risk management and emotional control, likely going through the process of blowing up an account or two or losing a substantial amount of money before you can really become a long-term profitable trader. One of the other good things TastyWorks has as a feature is in the platform they have a follow page where you can follow all the trades the TastyTrade team is making, including all the trades Tom and Tony are doing, but as well as most of the big people on their team. So jumping back in the platform, if you want to go to the follow page to follow a lot of the TastyTrade team's trades and get trade ideas, all you have to do is go down to this icon here on the platform. You click the follow page, and then you'll see all the different trades they've made recently. You can sort just by clicking on one of the names, and this should sort so only Tom shows up. And let's say I don't want Tom, I want Liz and Jenny. Click on them, they'll show up. And keep in mind, this isn't really meant to be used to copy their trades. It's just meant to give a record of what they're doing to the audience and make it so that you can get good trade ideas. So you can use it to, for example, say with Liz and Jenny, say you like the trade ideas they oftentimes recommend on this show. So you don't have to watch a show that day. Maybe you just go in here, check the trades they've done, and you can see, okay, Airbnb, I wouldn't mind trading that, see the strategy they did, see how it lines up, and be like, okay, let me duplicate this trade. You don't actually submit it when you do that. It just takes you to the analysis page. Then you can see, okay, do I like the assumptions of this trade here? So, okay, if Airbnb stays between $95 and $130, then you'll make money. And let's see, the stock price, $95 down here, 135 is up here, so it's a good range. It's an iron condor, so your risk is limited. It's an okay trade. Personally, I don't like iron condors, so I would not make the trade. I prefer going completely undefined risk. But it's a good place to get ideas as this follow page. That's what I mean. Another good use of the follow page is just to go through trades the team has done in the past. And then you could try to see if any of those trades moved against them, but you agree with the placement of the trade in the first place. So for example, going in here, Tony made a trade on Google on August 26th, and he got a $4.06 credit for selling a strangle. If I duplicate this trade, I can now get a $4.85 credit for the exact same trade he made just a few days ago. So if I agree with the assumption on his trade and the reason he made it, then it would be a good trade I could duplicate this trade or make small modifications to it and have a better cost basis than he does now. So it's a good place to get ideas where, in my opinion, you have a slight advantage, even though in practice it shouldn't give you an edge, but it feels like it does. The last great feature that Tastyworks has to offer is they're the only brokerage that seems to actually follow the regulatory requirements for margin approval and other types of account approval. So like, for example, getting options level 1, options level 2 approval, and especially options level 3 approval. There aren't any regulatory limits on when a brokerage account can approve you as long as you have the capital and claim to have the set trading experience. But a lot of brokerages want proof of that, especially with you trading on their platform. So I've heard and experienced many times myself, for example, on Charles Schwab, they were denying me portfolio margin because they wanted at least a few years of trading experience on their platform. And they didn't care that I was trading on Robinhood and Tastyworks before. They wanted proof on their platform. So with Tastyworks, you don't have to deal with any of this. As long as you have the funds in the account that meets the regulatory minimum and you seem to know what you're talking about, they'll approve your account for margin, portfolio margin, or whatever options level you want. So this is a big advantage, especially if you're new to trading options and you just need account approval to get your foot in the door. Keep in mind though, while they will approve you for options and margin with low account minimums, it's generally not the best idea to trade with real money, with substantial amounts of real money if you're new to trading options, and it's generally not very easy to trade options with a small account anyways. So make sure you're not taking advantage of their easy permissions approval to make bad investing mistakes. Like, take it slow if you're going to start this out and you're new to trading options. Like, Tastyworks is a good platform for it, but don't rush into it. You don't need to rush into these things. Okay, now to cover Tastyworks pricing and fees. Tastyworks is one of the cheapest options trading platforms. They have some extra fees versus some other platforms, but they also have some cheaper fees. So overall, it comes out where they're a moderately priced platform, pretty much as good as they come, but not any worse than most other platforms either. So if you're trading large numbers of contracts and you have a large account, you may prefer Tastyworks because they have a commission cap of $10 per leg of a options contract. But for many people who invest in margin, like heavy amounts of margin debt, or if you invest in international equities and stuff, like I'll cover later, then Tastyworks isn't always the best, and you may want to go with another brokerage like Interactive Brokers because they have significantly lower margin borrowing like fees, so you'll pay less in interest. So to reiterate, Tastyworks fees and pricing is basically the same as Interactive Brokers or TD Ameritrade or Charles Schwab or any of the big brokerages. The only real difference is the margin fees they charge as well as the commission cap they have. These are really only relevant for very large accounts with over 100,000 US dollars. So if you're not in that category, I would say just don't even worry about it. If you are, then you should crunch your numbers because you might be able to save a few hundred or a few $1,000s a year depending on your account size. But let's not forget the commission-free platforms like Robinhood and Webull. Many people think they can save money by going with these because they'll charge you no fees. But the fills you'll get when you're executing an order are worse than with one of these brokers you have to pay a small amount to, like Interactive Brokers, Tastyworks, or TD Ameritrade. So when you're trading an option on Robinhood, you'll get a slightly lower fill, which would generally make up for the fee you would be paying the brokerage to execute the trade and give you a better fill. So ultimately these platforms aren't cheaper, they just package the product differently to make you think you're getting a better deal, when in reality it's all the same. They're all businesses trying to make money, and they're all quite competitive in terms of pricing between each other. It's just they market it differently. Okay, so now to just briefly cover the pros of using Tastyworks. They have an amazing options trading interface. Their fees are relatively low, especially low if you're trading a large amount of contracts at once. They also have extremely easy options approval as well as margin account approval, which is very good if you're a beginner, in the sense that most platforms won't trust you to trade anything but cash secured options for usually a couple years. So Tastyworks gives you the benefit of the doubt and allows you to learn and test and get real experience trading options much sooner than other platforms would allow you to. And as mentioned before, Tastyworks has very good free educational resources with a few caveats as mentioned before. Okay, so now for a cons of Tastyworks, where this is really more important and stuff we haven't covered already. You can't really trade international markets with Tastyworks, or say you want to trade on the Singapore Stock Exchange. You can't go and trade on the Singapore Stock Exchange with Tastyworks. You can with Interactive Brokers and TD Ameritrade as well, I believe. But with Tastyworks, they're all focused on high liquidity markets, and those highly liquid markets with options are generally US markets. So they pretty much stick exclusively to US markets. You also can't really bid on bonds on the Tastyworks platform. So on other brokerages like Schwab, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, and Interactive Brokers, you can buy bonds directly in bond auctions, which can give you a slightly higher interest rate. But I mean, if I'm being honest, who actually trades bonds? The only people who do are people who just have excess capital in the account. And unless you have a substantial amount of money you're holding in cash, hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's not going to be worth the bother and effort of attending a bond auction versus just buying a bond ETF or doing some box spread financing to generate yield. One of the other cons about Tastyworks is they will give you approval for basically anything you want. Like I mentioned earlier, they'll give you options or margin approval pretty much as long as you meet the regulatory requirements. they won't gatekeep it at all, which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing if you don't know what you're doing and you take excessive risk. So I just want to reiterate, if you are going to use Tastyworks and you get margin approval and level fee options approval, don't go selling tons of naked calls and assuming you're going to make a lot of money just because it looks good. Like, you can get your face ripped off and lose all your money. It's a possibility. It happens to most of us when we first start trading options. One of the other issues with Tastyworks is their charting kind of sucks. Like, it's okay if you just want to see like where every stock is trading relative to where it recently traded and all of that, but if you want to do like advanced charting and use a lot of indicators or technical patterns, Tastyworks is terrible for that. So if you want to do that in platform, TD Ameritrade has better charting. But if you really want to, if you care about charting, you should just go with something like TradingView, and then do the charting on TradingView and do the trading on Tastyworks, because TradingView is just for charting. They're not a brokerage. That's what I'd recommend. But personally, I don't even do technical analysis or any charting. I just quickly look at the price action, see where its relative value is, and I don't think technical analysis is really important if you're trading options, but maybe you care about it, so I thought I'd mention it. The last real problem with Tastyworks is they don't really offer any portfolio-wide visualization of your portfolio performance. So if you want to see like pie charts of your different holdings or how much money you've made versus the S&P 500 over the last year or something, you're not going to be able to see any of that with Tastyworks. Like most other brokerages like TD Ameritrade and Interactive Brokers do offer this, but Tastyworks, as far as I know, they don't. They just offer a like regular bank account type trading statement, and that's it. And then just what you see in your platform. You don't get any chart, like you don't get any graphs or anything fancy. So if you want to if you like seeing graphs and stuff, you're gonna need to plug your data into somewhere else or skip using Tastyworks. Although, as I mentioned already, I think we have a better brokerage for most people. Okay, to quickly compare Tastyworks versus other platforms, before we get into the specifics, I just want to say the only two other platforms you should really consider, in my opinion, is Interactive Brokers and TD Ameritrade. That's why I've mentioned them many times already in this video. They both offer certain advantages over Tastyworks, but they also have some disadvantages. But these are the three platforms that really are highly competitive and have key differentiators that make them worth choosing versus other brokerages. So to start off, TD Ameritrade would be a better option if you're looking to invest in bonds directly, like the bond auctions. Then TD Ameritrade's very good for this. Or if you do a lot of trades, like thousands a year, then you can negotiate their commissions down to a point where they're significantly less than Tastyworks. Because Tastyworks, while they have low commissions, they don't offer as low of commissions if you make thousands of trades a year, because as far as I'm aware, Tastyworks doesn't negotiate down their pricing as much versus TD Ameritrade does. And that's one advantage to TD Ameritrade for certain people. With that being said, TD Ameritrade has some issues as well. They don't really have a very good options trading interface at all, in my opinion. They're very strict about account approvals, options approval, margin approval, portfolio margin approval, and they're strict about their margin expansion during down moves. They're much stricter than other places, so they have their downsides compared to Tastyworks as well. So yeah. Interactive Brokers is the other platform I'd say is worth considering over Tastyworks and TD Ameritrade. And they're good if you want lots of leverage or you want cheap margin. That's one of the main reasons I use them, but they also have the best access to international markets, as well as if you're not a US investor, you're not a US citizen or resident, or a UK citizen or resident, then generally Interactive Brokers is the easiest brokerage to work with. They accept clients from basically any country, and they can open an account from any country. So that's another reason I went with them. But really, they just have the lowest margin fees and they give you the most access to leverage. And their commissions can be slightly lower depending on your trading style than TD Ameritrade, and they're about the same as Tastyworks in most cases. So they're a good brokerage as well. They're the one I currently use. Most other platforms don't really make sense if you're a serious options trader. So those like Robinhood and Webull and all of these, they don't really have good options interfaces. Their commissions, while being low, they generally have worse fills, which make it so that commissions are the same or even more than these other platforms. They don't really offer portfolio margin most of the time. The leverage they offer is very low or very expensive, and they're not really good if you're trying to trade options, especially because some of them don't even have good desktop applications. And yeah, I just avoid in most other brokerages at all costs. Tastyworks, Interactive Brokers, TD Ameritrade, they're all fantastic. Most other platforms just don't have any real advantage versus them, in my opinion. As for my experience using Tastyworks, as I mentioned before, I started trading options around 5 or 6 years ago, and I started using Tastyworks in 2018, and I used them for around 2 to 3 years as my only or primary brokerage, and I never had any issues in terms of the platform. It was never down, and didn't have any input delay. I never had any issues with it whatsoever, technically. But I grew my account multiple years on it, and it was all good. Until I got a margin call. I blew up my account one day. And I'd like to take you through, mention a bit on that process, because I think Tastyworks handled it very well. So just to give you a quick rundown on how the process worked, when I got margin called, I received multiple, I believe, automated emails because they just seemed very generic, warning me I need to add more funds into the account, progressively increasing, and I largely ignored those because you know how it is. But anyhow, my risk management was not very good, to say the least. But then they contacted me, and basically we discussed what I could do to resolve the margin requirements. They gave me some options in terms of, do I want to close certain positions, which positions would I want closed first if they had to close them, if I wanted to deposit more funds into the account. They gave many options, explained different things that I could do, explained some hedges I could put on, and yeah. So yeah, they handled it quite well with that. And the big thing to me that I really appreciated is they were very clear about when they would step in. And what I mean by that is when we finally talked, they were very clear about, okay, if there's a big move further down in your portfolio that keeps occurring, or if it reaches below this level, we'll be forced to liquidate everything. So they were very clear about it and upfront, and they didn't leave it like a big unknown where they could just do it at any time. They made it quite clear when it would happen and why it would happen if I didn't take action. But after the conversation, I went ahead and took a few positions off and cut my losses, and the very next day, the position that blew up my account moved against me more, and if I didn't close it, I would have owed the brokerage like $20,000 by the time the stock market opened the next day. So yeah, I mean, keep in mind, I can't be sure if this is how the process still goes on, because this occurred in early 2020, before the COVID crash. So I'm not 100% sure if they still manage margin calls this way, but they were very professional and respectful about it, and they were helpful about it as well. So overall, if you get a margin call and the worst case scenario happens and your account's blowing up, they seem to manage it appropriately and in a human fashion. So that's a plus. I say this because I know some brokerages just are completely automated in their margin liquidations. So if your account just reaches below a certain amount, they won't call you, they won't warn you, they won't do anything. They'll just liquidate the entire portfolio and not even attempt to call you, just send you one quick email. And if you don't respond within that day, they just liquidate you. So Tastyworks is very good in this aspect as well. So since I think Tastyworks is very good in how they manage things, they have so many advantages, and they're probably the best platform for like new options traders and smaller accounts, why don't I use them anymore? Well, there's a few reasons for that. So like I mentioned before, Tastyworks doesn't really allow you to trade international stocks. So I wanted to be able to trade international stocks, and this was important to me. Another factor was I'm not a US citizen anymore. So I needed a brokerage that would allow me to sign up and maintain it. Tastyworks, I believe, would have allowed me to continue using the brokerage, but I just felt like it would be better to have a brokerage that I opened as a St. Lucian citizen, my current citizenship, rather than have one tied to being a US citizen when I'm no longer a US citizen. As I also covered before, Tastyworks charges more in borrowing fees for margin balances, and because I plan to take a substantial amount of leverage in my portfolio, I wanted to reduce this as much as possible, which is one of the reasons why I went with Interactive Brokers instead of Tastyworks now. Lastly, and arguably one of the biggest factors, is Interactive Brokers has good portfolio performance reports, and because I'm documenting my entire portfolio on this YouTube channel, I wanted to have where I could just generate reports very easily that have lots of graphs and charts that allow people to see exactly how your portfolio is done without me having to do a lot of work to generate these reports. So with Tastyworks, I would have had to do a lot of calculations and plugging the information into another platform. With Interactive Brokers, I can just print the report out and it's good to go. So that's another reason. Okay, to conclude things, I still think Tastyworks is the best platform for options and derivatives traders. Without a doubt, they're the best if you have a account below around 100,000 US dollars. Above that, it really becomes it really depends on what type of trading style you have and how you're going to manage your portfolio, and then you need to decide between Tastyworks, Interactive Brokers, and TdAmeritrade. Because above that, it starts to matter more, but below that, I still think Tastyworks is without a doubt the best platform. So I'd say if you have an account anywhere from $2,000 all the way up to $150,000, Tastyworks is probably just the brokerage to go with for now. Maybe in the future, consider switching to Interactive Brokers or TdAmeritrade if there's something, a real good reason for you to switch. But Tastyworks has pretty much everything you would need, and it's the most user-friendly platform to use. So they're the platform I'd recommend for most people. For folks with portfolio margin accounts above 100,000 US dollars, they should probably consider using TdAmeritrade or Interactive Brokers because they have more advanced options and features for large accounts and portfolio margin accounts. But their interface is really, really bad. So if you're new, you probably shouldn't go with them because the platforms are almost unusable if you're not used to options and derivatives trading. So this is one of the reasons I think Tastyworks is significantly better for smaller accounts and people new to trading options. If you do decide to sign up to Tastyworks or Interactive Brokers or one of the other brokerages I've mentioned here, make sure to check down below if I include any links for them, because if I do, it'll either include a small sign-up bonus for you when you sign up or a small kickback for me if there is no sign-up bonus that I'm aware of for you. As well as, hey, if you have any questions or comments about any of these platforms, especially Tastyworks, or a question regarding your specific situation and which platform would suit your investing style best, then you can always leave those down below as well, and I'd be happy to get to them whenever I see them. But with that being said, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.